Hey everybody, welcome to Campus to Contracts. This isn't just about your campus, this isn't just about your contract, this is about the agent, our agent, Mason. And what Mason does is he answers all those questions parents don't even know to ask. You may be wondering why I'm getting these offers, why is my kid getting noticed, what is an NIL? You can ask any of these questions. Mason will answer these. I'm your host, Brendan, and I'm here to learn just as much as you are. So high school students, junior high students, college students, parents, come on in. Mason's here to help. He's your guy. Hey everybody, welcome to Campus to Contracts. I'm your host, Brendan. Very excited about this brand new podcast for everybody out there. This is for you, the listener, to find out more about what happens behind the scenes. If you're a young athlete, if you have young, ambitious, talented young people like I do in my house, this is a wonderful way to see what's behind the scenes. And I'm joined with our agent, the agent, we call him. This is Mason. Mason, welcome to Campus to Contracts. Very excited for our show here. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm super excited, super pumped. Appreciate this opportunity, and I can't wait to bring you and all of our listeners and followers on this exciting ride, just how an agency is started, formed in its boutique stages, and eventually, hopefully, blowing up and becoming household names.
As am I. And the one thing that I love about this is when you watch sports, there's so much to this game than just that player, just that team, just what they're going through, the emotions of an off season, the emotions of playing in a contract year. We get to live that through an agent's point of view, an agent's perspective, the stress of trying to find the perfect team or trying to find the perfect coach or the perfect program, if you will. Whether that's going from high school to college, whether it's going from college to a pro league. There's so many avenues in this and so many choices. It's extremely overwhelming for an older person, but these are teenagers that we're talking about. This is teenagers that are trying to understand their future, as you were one of those teenagers trying to understand your future. Why don't you get a little bit of background regarding kind of how you got to where you are today? What formed Mason?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I was one of these young athletes, even not too long ago when I stopped my career. A lot has changed, though, since even I've been in high school. I was part of the class of 2015. But originally, I'm from Los Angeles, California. I have a younger brother. His name is Avery Williams. He currently plays for the Atlanta Falcons. That's why I'm rocking their gear. Got his jersey behind me right now. And it was, just the two of us. My mother, who is from Pullman, Washington. My father, who's from Los Angeles, California. They actually both went to the University of Southern California. My dad played at USC, then went to the Cowboys. So football has pretty much been in my immediate family's blood for a while now. I ended up going to Penn for college first. Then I went to Duke after that, and then grad school at Duquesne. And it's a whole story about my career that we can get into.
I can imagine. You said your father played for the Cowboys. How long did he play for the Cowboys, and what was the time frame that he was playing in the NFL way back? Obviously, a much different climate.
Yeah, so he went to USC from 79 to 84. And then 84, he went to the Cowboys, was there from 84 to 85 because he had an injury, actually. He had to medically retire. He broke his back. So wow. He was not in the NFL for long at all. But, he made a lot of relationships. He got into coaching shortly after that. And he's probably one of the bigger reasons why both my brother and I played football and why my brother is in the NFL right now.
And what position is your brother for the Atlanta Falcons?
He right now is a running back. He got drafted as a corner, though. He played college ball at Boise State University. He actually was a walk-on at Boise State, earned a scholarship, and then became a consensus All-American before he left. We'll get into all that in another episode. But, yeah, he ended up going to the Atlanta Falcons' fifth-round pick, and he's been there for 3 years now. So he's doing his thing.
That's a fantastic story. That's one of those heartwarming videos that you see a walk-on get a scholarship and all the teammates just, huddle around, cheer, and get super excited for the player who's been basically grinding it out without a scholarship.
Yeah, no, he definitely does have one of those videos. If you guys go look it up, probably Avery Williams, Boise State scholarship. And his coach was Brian Harsin at the time. Came pretty unexpected, but he worked for it. And crazy enough, his first college football play, first time ever being on the field, punt return 81 to the house. And he ended up 4 years later, he owns the NCAA record for most kick return touchdowns ever.
We're gonna link both, hopefully both of those videos here.
Yeah,
and you'll be able to watch them linked up on the podcast as we're talking about it. That's fantastic. What a prideful moment. I'm a sibling of 3 brothers and obviously one sister, so I have a large family. I can only imagine how exciting that would be as a brother to be able to celebrate that with especially the blood, sweat, and tears just to get to that point.
Yeah, no. So 2016 was a wonderful year for our family when it came to on the football field. Both my brother and I had really good seasons that year.
That's great. And I'm sure your mom is super proud of both of you.
Yeah, man. My mom is so supportive. She really has all of our jerseys, all of our bowl game jerseys, all of our team jerseys. She went to every game humanly possible. And, it's hard because I went to school in Philadelphia and my brother went to school in Idaho and she lived in LA. So it was kind of like, it's easier to get to him. And sometimes they would come out and see me. But to be honest, I always played better when my parents weren't at the game. So
you put too much pressure on yourself?
Yeah, it was just a weird feeling. My brother played well regardless. If you're there, if you're not there, he always was a stud. But for me, I didn't want anyone that I personally knew at the game, and I played much better.
Much better without that. That's great that your mom got all those jerseys. I'm sure she not only earned it, but holds them all pridefully.
Definitely earned it. Without her, my brother would definitely have not ever gone to Boise State or even had the chance to go to Boise State. Without her, he would definitely not be in the league. So she definitely deserves a lot of credit.
That's a fantastic story. So being the agent that you are for this show and what you're going to bring for behind the scenes, if you will, you obviously had ambitions of playing in the NFL, playing in the league, and playing professionally, not even just in the league, but professionally. So what was the transition for you, or what was your ultimate goal? Did you always want to work for and be an agent? Was always an ambition of yours? And when did that start for you?
Well, being an agent was always like a type of job that I wanted after my football career. And it started when I was really young. Really, it started when I saw the movie Jerry Maguire. I know how cliche that sounds, but it really was that movie that kind of flipped it to where all right, if I wasn't playing football, what would I do? It would definitely be showing people the quan, right? Showing people the money.
How old were you when you watched that movie?
Oh, man.
And am I going to get somebody in trouble for you watching a movie you shouldn't have watched at such a young age?
I don't know. I was young, though. I was at home. I might have been in middle school, maybe 5th grade even. I don't know, dude. But I was young. I was definitely young. And I always knew after my football career was over, I wanted to maintain my relationship with the sport and with everyone in it. So, there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the most prominent ways is to be a football coach, obviously. And then what I thought would be the best would be to be an agent. The reason why I kind of chose that was because it's with being a coach, you're literally always with the team. Whereas if you're an agent, you're on a different side of football. You're in a more corporate business type field of football and sports in general, because I don't only just do football. Even though this podcast is primarily around football, which I believe is the best way to teach both young people and parents this process of being a young teenager all the way through college and to your pro sport. But I think being an agent was just, my calling, because I do so much and I like being around a lot of people and talking to people.
So walking down this avenue, obviously with the universities that you selected, that had a lot to play with that, because you probably did some research on what it would take to be an agent, what kind of college education you needed. So what was the decision behind you choosing a hard university like Penn to start with? That's not a maybe I'll go here kind of a decision, especially for an athlete.
Yeah. Honestly, when I was in high school, I had a very different path than my brother. So what we'll be able to talk about throughout these episodes are the different paths of how even a high school player gets to college, right? Because my brother had 0 offers out of high school, 0, like not a single one. He had to walk on whatever school he was going to go to, he was going to have to walk on. Me, on the other hand, I had plenty of scholarship offers and opportunities to go play. I chose an Ivy League school. Now, what we're also going to talk about is that is not a scholarship opportunity in any sense. And not many people know that. So, guys, we will have a special specifically for the Ivy League, probably 3 or 4 episodes. And it's going to be just about the Ivy League. And I'm really excited about that because there's a lot of rules that people don't know. Even I didn't know going into that situation. And there's a lot of things you find out while you're there. I love the Ivy League though. Penn was probably the greatest decision I made. It was an Ivy League school, and it actually started out. My first Ivy League offer was Dartmouth, and I really liked Dartmouth. And then my second offer was Yale, and my third offer was Penn. Decided I didn't really like Yale, so it was really between Dartmouth and Penn. But going to Philadelphia, I took an official visit, and it just spoke to me. And there were some factors that I also will be talking about in some later episodes about how do you choose a school? Like, what are some kind of rules that I went by that I still even talk to some of my high school athletes and parents today that I have now consult and contract with, even if it's on marketing terms, and talk to, just because I know a lot of parents and a lot of youth athletes, like some things to go by when you're choosing a school, because choosing your college is a very, very, very crucial step in your development as a player, your development as a man or a woman, and your development to get to the next level. So
in your experience, your personal experience, would you say you were more overwhelmed by that decision, or were your parents overwhelmed, or was it everyone is just overwhelmed in different ways?
There are so many different reactions to how parents take their children being recruited. I had a very different situation than a lot of. I made actually my own decision 100%. Which, when we get to that topic in that episode, I will actually say I'm not so sure that was the best way to go about it, because I was still 16, 17 years old making these decisions. And I didn't quite understand the weight of those decisions. More so now with all these younger athletes who have all these NIL deals and collective bargainings, and they're getting paid. I think that those decisions need to be handled a little bit more seriously and professionally, and there needs to be someone who's looking at all of these different facets. For me, we didn't have that. It was just pick a college, what's the best college for you, and see how your career can bloom from there. My parents weren't too overwhelmed. They trusted me to make my decision. I had some pretty good decisions on the table, so I don't really think I could have went wrong, but I always do think that you can always make the best informed decision based on a couple factors.
And when you're talking about today and how different it is, even from when you accepted your offer because of the NIL deals, because of these deals hitting these kids, to me, when I look at that, whether I'm a business owner, I got a lot going on. It's very overwhelming. I have a team of excellent people that help me all throughout this process. When you're 16 or 17 and you're basically a business, once you have an NIL deal or these things, I feel like these kids are hitting a treadmill trying to run 85, 100 miles an hour, but the treadmill's going and they're hopping on midstream, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I always feel like, to me, the sense of the overwhelming nature of all of that, especially for someone so young, And you're talking about trying to steer them into a good path that creates good adults, that creates a good man or a woman later on in life. That's tremendously difficult in this climate.
Yeah, unfortunately, these young men and women have to grow up so much sooner than you and I had to. They're faced with some really major, big-time business decisions. Some of them, their parents have never gone through this. Some of them, their parents may have been athletes before and kind of get it. But no parent, regardless of how old or how young the parent is, has gone through this type of recruiting process that these kids are going through. So it is up to the parents, in my opinion, to stay educated by like watching podcasts like ours, being informed, and trying to learn at the same time that their kids are trying to learn how this process is going. Because you see that there are universities that are basically bidding over kids with money. Like, you know, it's not just who has the better facility anymore, who has the better history, who has the better record, the better coach. Sometimes it is about who has the deeper pockets with these collectives and how much NIL money can you bring to yourself and to your family by coming to this school over another school. There's a lot of this conversation happening, and it's completely legal, and it's, you know, everyone understands it's going on, but these are new factors that no athlete up to this point has ever had to deal with.
Because it's all in front. There was the behind the scenes occurrences of major, like, you know, the Eric Dickerson, these older athletes that were the best of the best. But now it seems all of this is in the front of everyone. So everyone's seeing like, oh, that kid's fine. He's making X, Y, or Z, or that kid's doing fine. They're doing whatever it may be. When they look at the amount of money they're bringing in for themselves as a writer or as a sportscaster of any kind, you can look at that and be like, they're set. I don't understand why they have all this pressure or all this. You have no idea what the family pressure is, what they are expected to take care of in that family. I mean, that's something that, you know, guys that I've read in my time growing up, like Charles Barkley and others who have talked about that, about the pressures that your family puts on you is tremendous. And I just can't imagine that as a 16, 17-year-old. It's tough for an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, let alone a teenager.
Yeah, there's tremendous pressure on some of these kids. You know, most of the time, well, before the pressure was just getting to college, you know, having that scholarship and not having to pay for your education. Now it's, I have an opportunity to probably fix a couple things at home before I even step foot on a football field. So there's a lot of things that are changing. There's a lot of things that are being enhanced. And, you know, with that comes a lot of the negative parts. You know, it's not all positive. There are going to be people that are going to start coming out of the woodworks and asking for things that, you know, probably would have never asked for that if, you know, you weren't in this predicament or this situation. All for really just being good at a sport and being recognized as something that's marketable or someone that's marketable. So a lot of things have happened.
And from my perspective, I mean, that's where the game of psychology is just such a massive, I mean, sports psychology, we talk about that, the in-game psychology, but you're talking about the humanity of how money changes the people around you. It enhances who you are, but the people around you look at you differently. And they may say that line, I can only imagine if I got a big NIL deal and I was 16 or 17 and then, you know, oh, you changed. You used to be like this and now you're different and now and then so you're a young person trying to figure that out. It's just that there's a tremendous amount of psychology going on with these kids.
Yeah, definitely. Mental health has already been, you know, recognized in the community of sports, and I'm glad that, you know, people are starting to see that, how important it is. But with these kids having so much money that they have now, I mean, things are going to be different. And, you know, I even get some of these kids in conversations with accountants, and it's like, man, I could have never even imagined 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I needing to talk to an accountant. I didn't even finish college yet. And some of these guys are talking to them before they even get into college, before they even make the decision of what college they're going to. And it's important. They need to understand these things. That's what I'm saying. They're growing up at such a faster rate. And, you know, for me personally, I think it's kind of sad because they don't even get a chance to really fully be kids anymore. They're already businesses. They're already adults by the time they get into college. They've lost a lot of college experience due to the fact that they're already a business. Some of them like it. They're able to make money a lot quicker, and they're able to do some things and help some people and get things that they want, that they've always desired. And I'm so happy for them for that. But I just feel like, there is the flip side of that coin, is that you got to be an adult now, and you've got to make some grown man decisions.
And then the other part that just is the reality of sports is the spotlight. If you make a bad decision publicly, everybody writes about you. And my favorite is these writers who are 40, 45, 50. They're older. I can't believe this 18-year-old kid did this. Or I always used to laugh about the writers and how they just were all over LeBron James when he was coming up. And that kid had more pressure than anything I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, man, none of these writers could have held an ounce of the character that he had when he was growing up with all that pressure. But they wrote about him and slammed him for how he acted here or how he acted there. So again, luckily there's so many more of these kids that it's not such a focus like it was with LeBron, I guess.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not wrong. They are corporations, and you lose yourself when you're just like, I am business me.
Yeah, definitely. And I am happy too that the market isn't so centralized anymore on just a couple of players. There's a lot of players out there that's making a lot of money, and there's a lot of good athletes. And, it's still fun to see even, these every single weekend we get to see some of the best guys in the country go at each other. And it's nothing like great competition. But, when you have teams like Colorado's very famous this year, and you got guys on your roster that have chains on during games and driving Rolls Royces, that's fantastic. Like, I could not be happier for the college athlete today. But it comes with a spotlight naturally. Like, there are things that are said, and people are naturally going to, root against you for whatever reason. And it is what it is. It's always been around the game. There are guys in the NFL right now who get text messages every Sunday night if they don't have a good game from fantasy guys that are worried about their fantasy stats. This is part of the game, and all college players, all high school players, all NFL players understand this fact that there's going to be someone who doesn't like you for a mistake you made, but it doesn't make you a bad player. And some of the best coaches are the coaches that tell their players that we know who we have in this room, and you're going to get tweeted at if you make a mistake, if you get a touchdown scored on, or if you drop a pick, or if you drop a ball, or if you miss a field goal, which is, one of the worst situations. It's the support and the camaraderie inside the industry, I believe, is getting so much stronger because of all that is happening, all the pressure that's being added on to these guys.
So in a way, what you're seeing is that the fortification of these universities or these teams is getting better because they have to protect each other and they can relate to each other. And it's so easy to do that because the outside is so easily attacking anybody who gets outside of that fortress. So if someone messes up, they look at that as a weak point, let's attack it. But you as a team, and again, the coaches, I think to your point, are doing a better job of saying this is our team, this is it's us. We, a collective, we win together, we lose together. So taking away that personal tax, if you will, I think that's really speaks highly to that. But yeah, I do think there's a lot of challenges in this industry, but there's always been challenges. I mean, it's never been perfect. It's never been, the NCAA by no means was a perfect system the way it was carved out. I do agree with you. I think it's great that players are getting paid. I do find it fascinating, and we can, again, our future episodes are going to dive into a lot of this. The only thing our government is looking at is the NIL deals for players, not for coaches, not for universities, but for the individual players. And like, whoa, we should probably cap that. I'm always like, funny how the only group that doesn't have like that lobbying arm, the players, the 18-year-olds don't have a lobbying arm in Congress. So what is the group they're going to try to write a bill about? It's kind of like, oh yeah, the 18-year-old kid, that's the kid who's really taking advantage of this. Not the university and not the NCAA. No, those honest folks there, they're doing God's work.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get into that into another episode because there's a lot of politics in football. There's Absolutely. A lot of politics from the lowest level to the highest level. So there's no shortage of that.
So what we do like to talk about, because this is again part of what Batter Sports was created for, is a kind of the father son, or the father son, father daughter, the father or mother love of a sport and how it's passed down with children. I would love to hear from you before the end of this introduction, like an experience you had with your parents, your mom or your dad, and something that happened either at a game or an experience or a coaching level that just really inflamed you to fall in love with what you were doing, and got you inspired to go as hard as you did for the sport that you love.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I grew up in a house where I had my dad's jerseys and his pictures all around the house on the walls, and I just saw this guy. He was wearing number 45 at USC, and he's playing with Marcus Allen, Charles White, Ronnie Lott, and all these legends. And he was starting for 3 years, so it was just always like in my face, USC, USC, USC. And then we would always go to all the games. You know, I'm watching Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, you know, Lindale White. It was crazy. It was just a great experience when I was younger. And funny enough, and we'll also talk about this too, the actual football development that me and my brother went through, and how I see some of our counterparts go through. We didn't play tackle football until about 7th grade, which for most families, that's kind of late to start hitting people. But we'll get into that in another episode and the development, I think. But it was just always around. We were always going to the USC, UCLA games over at the Rose Bowl or whatever it was. It was a lot of tradition-based, a lot about football, and it was kind of hard to keep us out of it. And by the time we were going into 7th grade, we already knew how to play. We already knew offenses, defenses, everything. We were playing flag football for the most part. And it wasn't really a big transition. He actually already had us ready to know how to tackle and play right before we even got to that point. So it's definitely a different spin that we'll be able to share in a later episode on the type of development I think a young athlete should have in today's day and age. But
is there one memory at USC or going to a USC game with your family that just is like, it was just such like a moment, like whether it's a touchdown or whether it's a certain game that was just like, you were just like, so it was just one of those moments you got held up. You're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I actually think I saw Notre Dame versus USC when Manti Te'o was there, and that was the year he almost won the Heisman. And though there were so many good players on that field, like it was just because I think we had the same seats every single game. In the Coliseum, and it was just like they came out. I think they warmed up in blue, and they came out in the game in green. I think that was that game. I'm not sure, but I thought that was like one of the coolest things ever.
Changed jerseys from warm-ups to
yeah, that was like the first time that ever happened. I was like, damn. And yeah, it was always a great time. I always remember watching Tommy the Trojan when he would stab the field. You know, the USC fight song is legendary. Yep. Legendary, absolutely. I always ran into some of my dad's friends or teammates. So it was like it was a family environment every time we went. Some of the older players that he played with recognized me and my brother. And it really set the pace for like, man, we got to go to USC and play there. Now, we never did, but that was kind of like our goal. That was like the grind.
But I would argue, this is my psychology argument, you and your brother are successful because you were cheering for a winner throughout those years. You were watching a winner. You felt the winning tradition. It was infused into your DNA to say, I'm going to be successful in life because I'm around so much success. And it just comes upon you to say, yep, this is what's going to happen. I'm not saying all USC fans are going to be as successful as the Williams. I'm just saying your family in particular, it was in that DNA of success.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got to see Pete Carroll really dominate for 10 years. My parents did a great job. My parents were both successful. I do believe that environment matters a lot. That's why I believe that the parent should be extremely educated on what their child wants to do. And we'll get into that as well throughout some episodes. But yeah, it was crazy watching us grow up because our dedication for football was immensely the same. Now, my brother is the hardest worker I've ever met in my entire life. I never came close to him. And then if you just look at our careers, kind of like, from 60,000 feet away, you're like, okay, clearly one of them just cared about school, right? And the other one just wanted to play football, and that's exactly what he did. He went to the league, right? Like, so when people look at our careers from that aspect, you see you see two different people, but the passion for football was definitely the same. I aced a few tests.
Well, I have to give a huge congratulations to your mother and father. That's something that she should, obviously, every jersey should be hers to keep. But that's something that I always say about my parents. My parents have sacrificed so much for our family to be where they're at. They always put the kids first and foremost. Whatever extracurriculars we were involved in, whatever we were trying to do, they were very supportive. So, I mean, to have that family environment, that those parents that care, and again, you're saying parents be involved and parents try to learn. I agree with that, but even if the parents are just there helping you along the way, they may not be the most informed, but they have that care about you 20 years from now, not 5 years from now, not 1 year from now, They want to see you because you're their legacy. So your mom must be super proud. Congratulations to her. Congratulations to your father. I'm so excited about this podcast as we get going. Again, thanks for all the background information. Thanks for allowing us kind of behind the door, if you will, into your life a little bit. I know we're going to get further into some of these topics and really dive into a lot of high school, college, you name it, the different pro leagues. There's so many things that we are going to touch on. But as the agent for Campus to Contracts, I will give you the final word. What do you want to send us off on?
Man, I just can't wait. We're going to be talking about all the different types of leagues that they got going on. We're going to go from NFL, CFL, USFL, XFL, even international leagues, the Japan League, German League, indoor football here. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be ongoing. You're going to hear a little bit about how my days are like, how my weeks are like. And I'm always going to talk to you about my 3 teams that I support, or really my 4 teams. I got Penn, I got Duke, I got Duquesne, and I got the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm always going to throw in something there. When you guys leave comments about what you kind of want to hear the next week going forward, or some type of ideas or topics that you want to hear about or learn about. No comment is a bad comment, because this journey is filled with so many things that we're going to talk about: academic success, graduation speed. We're going to talk about how to maneuver in college and how to utilize your time. And when I say time, I mean your eligibility time to your biggest advantage, and how you can walk away with 1 to 2 degrees before you even finish your career, and then you can go to the league. There's so many rules that are hidden, and I invite you guys to subscribe and get that notification when we put up an episode. We're going to be putting out a lot of product about that's for the education of both parents and young athletes alike. So I'm very excited, and I hope you guys join us.
Yeah, so the parents that are out there are high school athletes, junior high athletes, even college. If your kid's in college and there's some things that you thought were true and you're kind of miffed how things have changed, leave some comments for us. Mason's going to get into a lot of this and unravel a lot of the unknown and unknowns, if you will. And we're here to help. That's the biggest thing I would say is we want to see you be successful. We want to make sure that you're looking at this with your eyes wide open as best you can. This is why Mason got involved in this. He wants to help as best he can to help these young athletes not only have successful careers, successful steps, but also successful life. So we're excited to have this show. And Mason, I thank you for, again, letting us back into your family's life and kind of giving us a history of who you are. And obviously the USC has a big game coming up. As of right now, next week, they're going up against Colorado, which should be a fun one.
It should be. It should be.
They have a future NFL quarterback that everyone thinks is going number 1, the Heisman winner. He's fantastic.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good quarterbacks out there actually this year. I'll probably talk about a couple that I really like. But no, you're exactly right, man. And even those younger parents, those early parents who want to get an early start and education on this process. Now, I will warn you, it's always ever changing. So we're always going to have something to talk about. There's always going to be a new rule or new regulation or some situation. You know, even COVID presented us with so many different things. We're going to talk about the transfer portal and how that affects your guys' kids. So definitely tune in. Definitely please leave comments because we want to know what you guys want to know about so that we can come back and present that the next week or weeks after that, whatever the case is. But we want to make sure we're answering your guys' questions and we're getting the information out that you want.
Fantastic. Well, I am your host, Brendan, for Campus to Contracts, and that is The Agent, Mason. Thanks, everybody. You guys have a great evening, and thanks for listening. Bye now.